All right, so let's dive into our Transition Tuesday pose of the week, which is the Sage Koundinya 2, also known as Flying Man, Flying Splits, and what was the last one? Oh, Hurdler pose. Okay, so for the transitions, I had mentioned just a moment ago how I've been kind of putting this off because there is one particular transition where I was just like, oh, I really don't want to do this. So I was practicing before I went live, and my husband is home early from work, and I was telling him what the transition was, and he's like, oh, you mean this? And he just busted it out on my mat. So I said, you know what? You can just demonstrate that for the group. So I'm going to have him come over quickly and demonstrate this transition so he can carry on with the rest of his day, and then we'll go through some of the other ones. Okay. All right. He is going to demonstrate our hurdler pose to chin stand. So this is a very challenging transition, but if you have students who can do this arm balance pose and they're ready for a new challenge, this is a great transition for them to practice. All right, ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. So here he goes. He is going from hurdler, or he's going to start in down dog. Shift forward to chaturanga. It's going to tilt up through fallen triangle and woo, right into chin stand. Look at that. Thank you so much, hubby, for demonstrating that. I don't know if he's ever done that in class before, so when he got on my mat, I was like, oh, you mean this? He's like, I don't know if I can do that either, and he totally did it. So it is possible. If you can do this pose, I really encourage you to just give it a try and see how it goes for you. All right, now Sakil, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, she had some wonderful suggestions for this pose. And so I'll go through hers first, and then I'll go through some of the ideas that I have. In the post that I did today, where I just asked everyone to share your most recent yoga photo that's on your phone or on your computer, she actually shared an arm balance pose similar to this one, and I feel like she should be modeling all of these transitions for me. So Sakil, thank you so much for your suggestion with these transitions. So she said to go from downward facing dog, similar to what my husband just did, to shift forward into plank, or no, she said bring knee up to shoulder and plank pose, take chaturanga. She had a really good description, so make sure you check that out. And then lift your legs up into hurdler pose, and then you could exit out the same way you went into the pose. Now, what I also loved is she gave modifications for this pose and suggestions. And so what she said is, I'm going to grab my blocks here because I was sitting on them just a moment ago. She said you could use blocks for chaturanga. So based on, your arm length will determine how you situate your blocks. But you could use these in the pose, like if you're here in chaturanga, like if you wanted a little support for your shoulders. I feel like the block should be a little higher for me. Try this. This is probably going to be too high. But we'll give it a go. So you could try like this with the blocks as she suggested. So you've got some support and you can get the feeling of the legs lifting off the ground, but still, have some support for the blocks if your arms aren't quite strong enough for that. She also suggested using like a cushion or maybe even a blanket in front of your head, just if you're worried about your head falling to the ground. So I love those modifications, and thank you, Sakil, for sharing those with us. All right, so let's dive into some of those transitions that I thought of. We went through the down dog to the arm balance pose. Now, one thing that I like to do in my classes, and let me go this way so I can demonstrate the opposite thing that I just did, is when I have students come forward into this position and then maybe move into the arm balances, I encourage them to do like this chicken wing, where their knee stays above their body. Keep your knee high, 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 so you're really working your outer thigh, and then you have a little more space to place your inner thigh on your tricep and come into the pose, and then same thing coming out. Lift high, 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 and back into the pose, and there you go. So give it a try and see what that does to your outer thighs. Man, I just feel a burn just demonstrating it. So another thing you can do for you or your students who are ready for a challenge is you can do that with a straight leg. So you keep the leg straight, 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 straight into the pose, and then back up with a straight leg to a three-legged down dog, and release. Whew. I have to catch my breath after that one. So those are two transitions you can do to just explore with your students if you're teaching like a really advanced group or a group of really strong yogis who are ready for a new challenge. Encourage them to keep their knee above their body as they come forward, because you're going to feel it more in the outer thighs. All right, one of my favorite transitions into stage Koundinya 2 is to go from lizard pose. So I'll have students here in lizard pose, and this is great if you're teaching a multi-level class, because you can get them here in lizard pose and say, hang out with your palms down, or maybe bring your forearms to the earth, or maybe your shoulder comes underneath your knee, and if you're ready to take flight, plant your hands to the earth and lift your feet off the ground for stage Koundinya 2. So that could be a transition you do in your class, because you're allowing your students to find a place to go, and everyone can really feel their best, and they can really find their edge and challenge themselves. Some other ideas, you can go from a warrior 1. So let's say you're here in warrior 1 and you want to transition out into, oh, hi there, mailman's here. So if you're here in warrior 1, you could bring your hands to the ground, maybe tuck shoulder underneath, lift up into the arm balance pose. And here is where you can send your leg back into your vinyasa, and you can down dog. So again, just adding a layer of challenge on for your students. So that's one thing you could do. You could also do it from a warrior 2. So warrior 2, curl hands down. Knee comes up onto the shoulder, go into the pose, send your leg back to chaturanga, up dog, down dog. And there you have it. So just as one transition you can do with that. These other two, these are arm balance transitions. So I've got this. Go from crow into the flying splits pose. So if you're here in crow pose, maybe extend one leg straight out. Here, straighten the other leg. So that's one option you have. I'm sure you'll do it more gracefully than I just demonstrated. You can also go from 8-angle pose. So if we're looking at 8-angle pose, let me move these blocks out of the way. I'll go this way so you can see what I'm going to do with my legs. So 8-angle pose, we go through like elephant trunk, where you can start here, lift up into 8-angle pose, and then you can send your leg through the center into the flying splits, flying man pose. So that's another option for your students. If even like 8-angle pose is your peak pose in class, and you notice your students can do 8-angle pose, give them another place to go, right? Because there's always another challenging pose that your students can do. So encourage them to transition into that pose if you notice that they're doing well with 8-angle Ashtavakrasana. Another one is firefly pose. So firefly pose, Tadivasana. In Tadivasana, you can do Tadivasana with your legs straight in front, or maybe lower your hips and your feet are up to the sky. So if you're here in Tadivasana, you could tuck one leg behind, start to bend through your arms, and come into stage Koundinya 2 here. Whew, I did it. Surprised myself there. All right, so those are all the transitions you can do from one pose to stage Koundinya 2 pose, also known as hurdler, flying man, flying splits. All right, now transitioning from the arm balance to other poses. My husband did a great job demonstrating the fallen angel and the chin stance. He did that one at the beginning. And then chaturanga, so we briefly touched on that one. If you're here in the pose, you can just send your leg back to chaturanga and maybe move through an up dog to a down dog. You can also just come back to lizard pose. So I was mentioning before, with the variations, when you're done, you can say, let's meet in lizard pose, and you can even transition into a side angle pose. So maybe you have them in the arm balance, have them come out, back heel to the earth, and come into a side angle pose, and then maybe you carry on with your flow, however you were intending. Now the last one is baby grasshopper. What did I mean by that? I think I meant to do that the other way. Oh, yeah. So actually you transition from baby grasshopper to stage Koundinya 2. So if we think of baby grasshopper, I'm going to start standing. You come into baby grasshopper, grab the outside of your foot, lower down, here in baby grasshopper pose. So what you could do, make sure I have enough room to put my hand on that, is release, plant here, and then have your students swing their leg back and come into the pose there. So that could be a fun transition to do. All right.